Now there might be a few things that come to your mind when you look at this bike. You might be thinking starter bike, used bike, small bike, beginner bike. Yeah. I know. I thought these same things until I got a chance to ride this bike for myself.
Oh yeah, this is fun. I'm not gonna lie. This is more fun than my Ninja for sure.
And in this video, I'm gonna answer the questions that a lot of you might be facing. Questions like, should I buy a new bike or a used bike? And if I do buy a bike, which one? But even more so, is the Duke 390 right for me as a rider? I answer these questions and many more by breaking this bike down and how it performs. We're gonna take a look at style, design and engineering, suspension, power plant and engine, brakes, electronics, unique features, cost and value, and last but not least, my final verdict and what I think about this bike. So let's move past this boring list and get into the meat and potatoes. So without further ado, let's talk about style. All right, this one's for all you motorcycle peeping toms and moto pervs. The Duke 390 is a naked bike that shamelessly exposes all of her sacred motorcycle parts. She's wearing nothing but a lightweight trellis frame, adorned in white and construction cone orange. Cause let's be honest, you get this bike cause you don't want to get hit on the freeway. And what better way to achieve that than to ride a fly construction cone like this? Now seriously, all jokes aside, man, this bike stands out for better or worse, and I like it. It's one of those bikes that has a polarizing style, and if you didn't know, KTM's history started with creating motorcycles with bespoke parts and designs, and the KTM Duke 390 carries on this tradition. From a headlight that looks like an armored bug's head or something from a real-life motorcycle transformer, this bike is eye-catching to say the least. And I think KTM has done an excellent job of making this bike look futuristic. In my opinion, if Elon Musk ever decided to make a cyber bike to go with his cyber truck, the design language of the 390 could serve as a blueprint. Beautiful hard angles meeting minimalistic fairings that converge into beautiful shapes make me give this bike an 8 out of 10 for style. Now many of you are gonna disagree with me, and that's fine, but guess what? When you disagree with me, you're just proving my point. That point is either you hate this design language or you love it because it's polarizing. It's nowhere near dull. KTM has done with the Duke what Apple has done with the iPhone. When you look at the iPhone camera, it stands out and you either hate it or you love it. Well, when you ride a KTM, the orange and naked frame with these futuristic angles screams KTM, and you either hate it or you love it. And in a world of many motorcycles having such similar boring, bland style, I think this is a good thing for the person who likes to take a different path in life and stand out a little bit. All right, design and engineering. Now here's a fun fact that you might not know, and I promise that it is relevant to the design and engineering aspect of the Duke 390, but just roll with me for a second. So as it stands today, KTM currently holds 96 Motocross GP, MX1, and MX2 World Championships since 1974, 114 E1, E2, E3, and Super Enduro World titles beginning in 1990. The company also has claimed 260 World Championship titles. It has 3 consecutive championships in AMA Supercross between 2015 and 2017. So check it out.
I kept the faith, keeping the faith. I know you got it. Yeah, out of my way. Give me some space, just family around me. Hey, putting in work, won't say a word until they announce it. Hey, determined to get it, I'm focused and driven. What you know about it? I'm just working on my trophy speech. My trophy speech. I'm just working on my trophy speech. My trophy speech. This for the fam, this for the home team. Yeah. I'm just working on my trophy speech.
Either they know a thing about designing bikes, or they pick good racers, or it's a combination of both. But if I had to guess, I'm gonna guess they know how to make some good bikes. So, KTM also makes supermoto and high-end race bikes such as the RC series. And guess what? They all trace their lineage and bloodline to the Duke 620 that was introduced in 1994. You see what I did there? Lineage, bloodline, Duke. Hey, go look up what a Duke is. Anyways, consider this. Almost all of KTM's bikes are based upon the design and engineering of the Duke series. So what does that all mean? And why should you care? Well, it means that there are many design and engineering cues on this bike that punch way above their weight class, and they can easily be missed. For example, look at the brakes. You get bi-brake brakes, which is short for Brembo. Other areas of the bike show the prowess of KTM and their designing, such as the power that this little single-cylinder engine makes and the insane feeling of torque that this little bike can produce, but more on the engine and the torque later. The lightweight frame and geometry of the motorcycle. They inspire confidence while riding the city around cars, and this really does help you as a newer rider. Although I will say, it is a little too tall for me at 32.3 inches, because y'all know I'm short. But if you ever did decide to buy this bike, KTM makes a lower-end kit. It ranges between $199 and $299. On top of that, the Duke is wearing a pair of orange 17-inch wheels. They're 110 millimeters wide in the front, 150 millimeters wide in the rear. Now, wrapping up this section right here, I think too many times we look at the end result, but we never pay attention to who created it. And I believe it's the who that makes all the difference. Think about this. What would the iPhone be without Johnny Ive? Yeah, he's created almost every one of them. What would the Bulls be without Jordan, or Christianity without Jesus? And would you really go back to Cali if it wasn't for Biggie? See, when it comes to the Duke 390, maybe the most crucial factor of this bike's engineering and design characteristics can be found in the team behind the bike. Because KTM's design team is comprised of former pro racers, mechanical engineers who both live and breathe the race ready mantra. And this race ready design language can most notably be found in the engine.
I don't think this would ever get old. This will never get old. Oh, man. Let's try it again. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. Nope. That never gets old.
So, where do we start when we talk about this engine? Now, up front, I'm going to say this engine definitely has some good qualities, but it isn't without its faults and hangups. But before we get into the things that get my gears going in the wrong direction, let's talk about where this power plant excels. First, this engine boasts a 373cc liquid-cooled single-cylinder thumper. It's putting out 44 bhp and 37 newton meters of torque. And I can tell you, this little thing is torquey for sure. In fact, I have nicknamed this bike my little torque monster. Now I'm gonna pause for a shameless plug here. If KTM ever creates a motorcycle and calls it the Torque Monster, you heard it here first, and I want my cut. All rights reserved for the SoCal Rider B YouTube channel. All right, now another notable mention is that when compared to other sports bikes in the sub 400 class, this single cylinder Torque Monster is only surpassed by the Ninja 400. Now, if you know of some different bikes from the major manufacturers that drop more than 373 cc's, you know, not talking about no cruisers here, please let me know in the comments. And in my opinion, 373 cc, that's pretty impressive coming from a single cylinder. I got up to 80 miles per hour with no problem on the highway, but I will say that it was a little lackluster going from 60 to 80, especially when compared to how the Duke performs in its lower end RPM. Now, this definitely leaves you expecting more in the higher RPMs, only to fail to deliver like Shaq at the free throw line. I also found that this engine vibrates, like when I forgot to turn my ringer back on when the spam callers keep calling.
One thing I will say about how this bike feels is it's definitely more vibration heavy. And that's to be expected from a single cylinder. That's to be expected from a single cylinder bike. So I think that plays a part into why this bike feels so jumpy.
And what's worse is this bike vibrates right around 8,000 RPM, which is still 4,000 RPM shy of its red line. But despite this hang up, this little engine that has no problems gathering speed on the highway. And overall, I was pretty impressed with how it handled itself on the freeway. The bottom line is this: you can't have it all. And while it is a good engine, the vibration at high speeds will most likely turn off newer riders on the highway, since it does make the rear view mirrors vibrate way too much to be helpful. But if you keep this bike in the city, you will have no problems with the constant twerking. Vibrating. But if you are considering taking it on the highway at the higher RPMs, you might need to pump your brakes, G. Speaking of brakes, the Duke 390 is rocking a Bosch 2-channel ABS system. The rear is slowing things down with a 230mm rotor and a single piston caliber. KTM in these single cylinders. We also have a 320mm massive rotor in the front with a 4-piston caliber by Bray braking system. That's not really much to say here, but what I will say is the brakes are Brembo, aka by Bray. And although they are a lower end version, come on, man, it's Brembo. Now, I'm not a brake master, so I don't know all the technical aspects of brakes, and maybe you don't either, but what we really care about is how it feels and performs. And in my opinion, these brakes felt consistent. Now, they didn't wow me, but they didn't leave me feeling like they couldn't get the job done. Not once did I activate the ABS, so there's a brownie point for that. And I found myself pushing this bike harder in the corners and braking later to get a feel for them. And not once did I regret that decision. This is where I'm gonna drop 2 caveats. The first caveat is this: brakes should not be surprising, nor should they leave you wanting more stopping power. Brakes should be something that just works so well that you forget that they're there until you call on them to do a job. And that is precisely what these brakes did, which in my opinion is a good thing. Second caveat: I know that brakes alone do not account for stopping. Other factors play an essential role in braking, such as rider experience, tires, temperature, and suspension, which is the perfect segue into our next topic of suspension. Still, before we move on to suspension, I think it's worth noting that I suppose having Brembo trickle-down tech from its performance brake line is valuable and continues to make this bike an excellent value for the money. Now, I won't leave you in suspense anymore. Let's move on to suspension.
Felt the rain, I should find shelter, pull up my umbrella. But today I'm feeling stellar.
The Duke 390 is rocking WP suspension. I know one of you might be asking whether KTM owns this suspension and what WP stands for. Don't worry, I already did the research for you. First of all, KTM does own WP. And second, the WP stands for White Power Suspension. Calm down, all you racists and conspiracy theorists, because even though this is an Austrian brand and they have a history, White Power stands for the notable white spring. It was designed by a pro motocross rider and was later acquired by KTM. The suspension on the 2019 Duke 390 is a WP monoshock swing arm with an adjustable preload. Now, the front is a 43mm telescopic front suspension, and on the 2019 model, it's non-adjustable, but at least it's upside down, with the later Duke models being fully adjustable in the front and the rear. I'm looking at you, Kawasaki. Quit playing games and flip that front fork on the 400. The Duke's suspension felt soft, but not too soft. And I'm sure if I wanted to, I could dial it in to be just right for me. In my opinion, this softness is a plus because it eats up the uneven surfaces in the city and makes for a more supple ride. The bike always felt responsive in the city and sure-footed in the twisties. So remember how earlier I said the height of the bike stole my confidence, or some of it, right? Well, the handling and responsiveness of the bike gave me that confidence back. But it's not all roses here either. When I found myself pushing this bike in the corners, it did feel slow to respond in the quick switches of the lean angles. Now, maybe I'm spoiled and doing this bike wrong by comparing it to a Ninja, but it is a noticeable difference that caught my attention. I will still say this. If this is your first bike, the suspension and cornering performance will not leave you wanting. And dare I say, you would be more than happy with this as your first bike. This bike is also equipped with a set of upright handlebars, and that puts you in an upright and relaxed position, which does help reduce rider fatigue and allows for easier counterweighting, which is a plus for first-time riders or for someone who wants a more comfortable riding experience. Let's talk about the electronics. The electronics package on this bike is pretty good. For starters, you get the daytime running lights with an ambient sensor, and they automatically switch the light from a low beam to a high beam. Now, these auto switching lights are super handy because when I found myself riding through low visibility situations like this fog here.
Okay, we're running into some fog here, big dogs. I didn't foresee this happening, cuz. Now, is that gonna stop us as a beginner rider? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Ran the stop sign. Bro, we're gonna keep going. We're just gonna take it slow, okay? Oh, we're gonna take it slow, big dog. I hope nobody hit me. Dear Lord Jesus, please protect me.
They automatically switch to low beams. And I think that's awesome because I needed to focus on riding safely instead of fumbling with an instrument cluster. And let's be honest, most of us are not reading the manual and playing with every feature. Most of us, we're gonna hop on that bike, we're gonna ride, and then we're gonna ride the manual. We're gonna read the manual only after we realize we don't know how to do something. Now, before I continue to talk about the good of this cluster, let me say right off the bat, I do not like this signal indicator. Because see, when you engage your signal lights, both arrows light up at the same time. You don't know if you press the right or left signals. Now, I already know there's gonna be some internet trolls who say things like, if you don't know how to use your signal, then you shouldn't ride. Or some other, what they think is a super witty comment that only a MotoGP legend like them would say. But still, I think it's annoying and could be a minor fix that can make a big difference. Despite the signal indicator issue, the rest of the digital display is engineered exceptionally well, adding to how underpriced this bike begins to feel. First, the brightness of the display is great. I had no problem seeing the screen in direct sunlight, and even with my shades on, I had no problem with the rainbow effect. But that's because my shades are not polarized. So a point worth making is if you do wear shades or you get a shaded visor for your motorcycle helmet with the polarizing effect, the screen is gonna have more rainbows than a Lucky Charm commercial. And that could be distracting to see when you're riding, so keep that in mind. Now that ambient light sensor that I talked about earlier is also used to throw this screen into a night mode when everything becomes darker and makes it easier to read on the screen at night or in other dark conditions. The cluster shows valuable information like speed, RPM, and a shift warning light that blinks, which makes this bike feels more expensive than it really is. It also shows current gear and coolant temperature and has a section for favorite information that can be programmed by the user. Now this is helpful because it lets you set trip mileage to better maintain maintenance schedules for things like your oil, chain, and even your lube schedules. The cluster also has a Bluetooth indicator to show when you are paired to a headset or a smartphone, and the screen updates accordingly based on the information. But it seems that it can only be used with something called KTM My Ride. Now, I don't know if this is a feature that you have to purchase or if it comes standard because I didn't try to connect it. So if any of you know exactly how this works, please drop it in the comments so that we can know how it works, because there might be other people who are thinking about purchasing this bike. It also has a section showing you whether you are in ABS or Supermoto mode. And that takes us into our next topic, which is the notable features. The first notable feature is the ability to put the bike in Supermoto mode. This allows the rider to deactivate ABS to the rear wheel, but it's only to the rear wheel. The benefit of this is if you want to race and slide the rear wheel, it'll give you that flexibility to do so. And for a bike at this price level, it's another excellent feature that makes this bike, once again, punch above its weight class. Another notable feature that speaks to the race-ready nature of the Duke is the ability to program a shift indicator light. The bike has what it calls an RPM1 and an RPM2 shift indicator. And this is used to help the motorcyclist judge the point of when a gear change should occur without looking down. This increases the consistency in gear changes and helps focus by keeping the eyes on the track when racing. Now, these two features speak to the mantra of KTM's race-ready philosophy. And although this bike is far from perfect, in my opinion, it is exceptionally designed and thoughtfully constructed. Now, one thing I'm gonna say about the price is, if you buy this used, right now, Kelly Blue Book is saying that, the bike is only worth about $3,935. But when we go to, use places like Cycle Trader, we're seeing these bikes go anywhere from upwards of $4,000, all the way up to some of them are over $5,000. When you look at the fact that the 2022 Duke 390 is $5,799, it just makes more sense to buy the new Duke as opposed to a used Duke, because not only are you going to get a brand new bike that you don't have to worry about someone not maintaining properly, but you're going to get all those newer features like adjustable front fork, even, new rider technology and whatnot. So it's very hard to recommend this bike used at $5,000 or above when you can go get a brand new one for maybe $1,000 more after taxes and whatnot. So unless you really find a good deal on a used bike, I still would recommend you get the new one. But I think no matter what you do, you're still getting a great bike for the money. What's my final verdict and my opinion on this bike? Here's what it is. The Duke 2019 is a playful torque monster that can be serious when you need it to be. Suppose you want to commute to work and use this as a Street Fighter style bike. Yeah, it can do it, and it'll do it very well. If you're gonna take it on the twisties and rip out of the corners with enough torque to feel like you're on a roller coaster without having to really go fast, yep, it'll do that too. And it'll even let you disable ABS to slide that rear wheel. However, I don't recommend that for new riders. But when you need to get somewhere and you're in a time crunch, it'll also deliver for you on the highway while keeping you safe with its highly visible orange paint scheme. I think that this is one of the best bikes money can buy, and an even better choice for the beginner rider who wants more bang for their buck with extra features that are usually not found on many other bikes at this price point. I'm SoCal Rider B, and this was my Duke 390 review.